At 1, 2. Just want to make sure we have the audio correctly hooked up. And the crazy thing is, we're trying to. So what we're doing now, we're trying to get this audio down, but and a lot of times you spend time with this, and this is why I tell you a lot of this is you have to do the work. You have to do the work, and there's that's pretty much it. There's no it's like that's pretty much it. You got to do the work. Now I came now while creating this, I wanted to do it in a specific manner, and that's why like it takes time. So when I do these, it takes some time to actually do, and then once you do it, depending on the outcome, how everything you know worked into play, it takes some time to kind of go in and you know s- you know just begin to kind of you know just go through it and begin to what's the word I'm looking for, you know proof it. You want to go through and you want to proof it, and you want to just go through the different aspects of it. And I tell you this, it's unfortunate, like with these type of situations, because I haven't had a you know like I haven't had anything like to come about like this, like, so we don't even have, like, with the audio is crazy because we don't even have, I have to go back and I have to try to search and pull the audio out. We don't, like, it's not even here. I have, like, different things come about, and again, this is one of those things, and the thing about it is, you get individuals that think that, hey, listen, these things are just, these things don't just fall in your lap, man. You don't roll out of bed and things are, no, no. And it gets, I was talking to an individual, and I'm like, and to speak with someone from a standpoint of, just not, it's a connection. It's a connection without the understanding, and it's different because it kind of it's different. So what I want to do is, I don't want to take too much time on that. The audio system is bugging out. You know what I mean? Because that's what it's doing. I want to stay on the subject of what we have right here. And with that being said, we're gonna move right along. Now, the next, the one of the next one of the next topic, as we step further into our conversation. The next topic is objective, right? And we're gonna take a step back because we had to fix the audio, so I may say some things that I mentioned. But as we take a step further into our conversation, the next topic is objective. Now, the thing that comes with the objective is, you know, individuals look to repeat or have a continued conversation of excuse me, a continued conversation of a situation or situations of immense proportion. Now, what that means is there has to be accountability. There has to be accountability somewhere. Now, to have, if we're talking about, you know, a continued a repeat or a continued conversation of a situation or a situation of immense proportion, that means that there's been no progress, throughout the situation. And when I say that, certain, accountability factors have to be input, I'll tell you this. I was looking at a movie, and I mentioned this before. I was looking at a movie, and, certain situations had took place. And with the situation that had took place is that individuals, certain things had took place, and there were individuals involved. Now, the situation that took place, there had to be an accountability for certain things to even move forward. Accountability had to be made moving forward, right? And you want to keep that in mind when it comes to these type of things, because that in itself, that's how we're looking at it. But we're talking about now. If you now another thing that we have here is, now keep that in mind, right? Accountability. When in a situation, we're talking about objective, which is the next topic after we've talked about the first topic, which was the initial topic of business. We took it a step further in our conversation, and now we're on the second topic of objective. Now, with the objective, we're saying that individuals, you know, it's a situation of individuals looking to repeat or have a continued conversation of a situation or situations of immense proportion. And we're saying that in similar situations, in the situation in which we speak about, accountability has to be, accounted for. Now, another thing that comes to mind when we're talking about this is cycle of events. You want to, understand, because I'll tell you this. You know certain things. Like I mentioned business, right? And when I mentioned the business, I said, hey, listen, I know personally, you know, businesses that, excel and succeed in their, within their business, and they employ a handful of individuals. And we take it a step further. I know businesses that, excel and succeed within the nature of their business, that employ, you know, you know, hundreds of people. So, with that being said, when you're talking about cycle of events, when these certain things require the the accountability factor because of the way in which things are carried out. Now, I tell you this. So what we're talking about is, you know, and I'll mention that. Let me see. I'll mention that. I mentioned that. So I'll mention that. Because I'll mention that as we progress in our conversation. But accountability factor in such situations is very important, right? And as we continue to progress our conversation, I just want to make sure that certain things, that we don't want to leave out. Now, also, with the topic of with the topic of objective, I want to share something with you. Lateral subjection. You know, with lateral subjection, I want to briefly speak on it, but I'll also speak a little bit more in detail as we further our conversation. Lateral subjection, we is something that I'll explain a bit more. But I want to share something with you while we're here. I want to share something with you. Then I want to give a um, I want to share a example with you. Now, three things I want to share with you, and that is gender, race, and maturity. Now, as I begin to provide this example that I wanted to share with you guys, it comes in the form of an individual. I'm not sure what how it took place, but an individual gave a situation of they're out, right? Now, I'm not sure if they were out, vacation, business, or just a personal outing, but the individual, it's clearly that they were away from home, right? And saying, "Hey, listen, I'm away from home. I have my wife. They have their family with them, right? They have their family with them." And the individual says, "Hey, listen, this is what I want to do. I want to take. I want to go out. I want to go to a business. I want to visit a business, and I'm going to take." And he took his child with him. So as he took his child with him, the individual gets to the business. As the individual gets to the business, there was a wait for accommodations, right? Now, at this time, I want to give the understanding in which I had. So at this point, the wait for accommodations is not is not unheard of, but it's not it's a little bit it's a little bit late. So it's not um, during the day. It's somewhat late in the evening. So I guess this was one of those. It was like one of those midnight situations. Hey, listen, let's go out. See some things, and let's stop here. Type situation, which is okay. But I'll give you this: the business that the individual visited is a well known business. And I'll say this also: it's a restaurant. So with it being a wait, for accommodations, it's just waiting. So there, different interactions, people talking, and this and that. So the individual had began to notice, people ordering a certain item off the menu and everything that comes with that. Not everybody is ordering it, but he noticed that quite a few people are ordering this particular item. So it's like, oh, hey, listen, you want to get some more information on the particular item, this, and that, and then he's informed that, hey, yeah, this is what they're getting, and this is what they give the whole accommodation of hey, listen, he's getting information about what the item is that's on the menu. So he begins to give thought to, hey, listen, I may have so he may or may he may and may not have visited the establishment for a particular item off the menu or whatever the situation was. But after he noticed that a lot of people were ordering a specific item off the menu, he like, hey, well, listen, I'm thinking about I'm thinking about ordering that too. It's quite normal. It's okay, right? So he goes on to say that he's still waiting for accommodations. I'm assuming that this was just a general question that he pulled someone away from their work and was able to ask them. So the thing that I'm saying is the individual became more had given more thought to ordering a specific item that he noticed individuals ordering. So he then went on and said, hey, listen. So now, when as he begins to get closer to accommodations, he says that he now wants the experience. He wants to experience the item on the menu that, you know, individuals were ordering prior to him being accommodated. And he says he wants the experience. And what I say to that is, why settle for just the experience when you can have the results? Now, the thing about that is, and I'll say this, um, I mentioned three things prior to, just sharing that information, and that is gender, race, and maturity. Now, it's important that I share this information with you because the next time we have this conversation, guys, I want you to be here because it's important that you hear our next conversation on those three topics because you're not going to get it anywhere else. And what I don't want is for an individual to have a conversation of the mention, excuse me, of those mentioned topics, and and outside of its, normal context, and you receive, false information. So gender, race, and maturity is a conversation that we're going to have, but also understand that the conversation within itself is different, but also those three topics are, talked about outside of its normal context. So I don't want an individual to hear I don't want an individual to hear this conversation and say, hey, well, listen, and then have a conversation, or ask about certain things, outside of our conversation, and receive false information. So it's important that you hear the next time we have the conversation on certain topics where we'll talk about gender, race, and maturity, and we'll go through it step by step in detail what these three topics are pertaining to outside of its normal context. And that's important. So, again, as we progress in our conversation, we also come to the third option in our topics, which would be population. Now, with population, you want to, you know, understand that the business itself, you want to be able to align certain things within the business. And again, I'm speaking to I'm speaking to businesses, from industry, experience, and activities. And I also mentioned, that there are different businesses that excel and are successful within their business that employ a handful of individuals or that employ hundreds of individuals. So I'm speaking to, when I say business, I'm speaking to those businesses. And I'm also speaking to those who have given thought to, hey, listen, maybe I want to start my own business, but I'm at this point. And this is not a thing that you want to put a rush order in on. I mentioned that before. But also you want to understand that, certain things go into, the idea. And then once you take it a step further to the activities, there are certain things that go into, just beginning to build that business, for yourself. When I say for yourself, the business that you're building, you want to be able to build out that business. So, a lot of things that some of the things that you wanna that we want to kind of speak of when we talk about, the third option is, what are some of the goals? Like what are some of your goals? When I say goals, I want to know, where are you exactly, and where are you looking to land far as moving forward. So it's where you are now, your start. So when we talk about goals, where are you now? What was your starting point? And then what are some goals that you're looking to accomplish moving forward? And when I talk about that, I mentioned that I would give more detail to a word that I mentioned, which was lateral subjections. Because all businesses business itself is it varies. So what are some of the things that you have to what are some of the overcoming challenges there? When we're talking about just where you are currently, your starting point, and what are some of the things that you're looking to accomplish moving forward. Another thing that we want to give conversation to, excuse me, I was looking at the screen, is earnings. What are some of what are some of the projections that you have, and then what are some of the financial accomplishments, excuse me, what are some of the financial accomplishments that you were able to accomplish where currently. So because I mentioned I didn't want to I didn't want to miss that, the conversation of where you are currently, starting point, and then some of the goals moving forward. And that's one aspect of it, but we're talking about, what are some of the financial, goals that you have accomplished for yourself. And then we're also, as we progress in the conversation, we're talking about projections moving forward. What are some of the projections that you are looking to accomplish financially when it comes to just building out that business that you are building for yourself, right? And then also rate, like, what are some of the things that are surrounding these goals, when it comes to, as I mentioned, overcoming challenges. What are some of those things that when it comes to rate, and then, also what needs to happen to get to that point of overcoming challenges. It's all things that I want to just begin to, have a conversation about. Now, taking a step back, one of the things that so now we've come to we're on the third topic of our conversation. But again, so what I want is, and this is something that I'll say, because the what I didn't mention while we were talking about the while we were on the second topic, which was objective, and um, I gave the understanding of, when you come to certain situations, objective is individuals who look to repeat or have a continued conversation of a situation or situations of immense proportion, right? So with that being said, I said accountability plays a part, because we're talking about business in itself. And I said that there are many businesses that I know that excel and are successful within their business that employ a handful of individuals. And there are businesses that excel and succeed within their business that employ hundreds. Accountability is what I talked about when we spoke on the topic of objective. And I said that accountability went into this, the topic of objective, because, when you're speaking on a situation and it's a repeated situation or continued conversation of excuse me, it's a continued conversation of of immense proportion. You have to understand the accountability, and because things you now taking a step away. Yeah, that's the audio there. It's coming. Yeah, it's coming back around. It looks like. So the thing about that is taking a step away from the accountability factors that have to be measured within the objective, and when you're talking about cycle of events, when these things go into certain when these things go into when certain things are they come into play, and they're beginning to, you know um, and certain activities are beginning to, you know um, come into play. It's also some of the one of the things that I mentioned previously, right? And this went into the movie that I spoke about previously when I was saying accountability, but also a word I mentioned, that we have a word for this type of thing, and that is a did. A did is a distraction, interruption, or disturbance, right? And that's important because, you know, away from the accountability, the cycle of events and the way things are handled, the way things are, being put into play, I'm saying that, a did can be a retract. You get what I'm saying? So a retract is, it takes away from the, you know, the goals that you have, right? That you have, that are not that you have, that are set to the business. It takes away from a lot of things that are set to the business, because now we've moved forward. Now we've as we have taken a step further into our conversation, understand that when you're talking about business, a lot of things in you, you know certain things are being put into place. So now you're talking about accountability, but we've taken a step further past the accountability when we're talking about certain events. And then when I say events, it's not a something that happened. It's what you do. So I don't want you to look at it like event, because and again, and this is why, at the end of this, at the end of our conversation, I'll provide some information that will allow you to contact me, directly, and have a more detailed conversation on certain topics or things that were mentioned. Because events is not something that, hey, listen, there's an event here, you want to go here. No, no, no. It's a bit different. So when we're talking about retract, it's still, it's a accountability thing, but you have to also understand that where that lands the business when it comes to, you know, certain oriented things that were mentioned, whether it be, you know, certain statuses, accomplishments, and things like that. And you have to be, there has to be the accountability comes back into play when it comes to the measurement of where where the business is exactly. And that's another thing, because, a lot of times, there and I want to be brief, because this is a brief conversation. It's not a I don't want to drag this thing out more than what it has to be. It's a brief conversation, but we just want to, touch base on some topics that were previously talked about, but we just want to give a bit more detail to them. So Again, there will be information provided that would allow, you know, you guys to contact me and just have a more detailed conversation. So give me just a moment. So I'm trying to see. Yeah, that is what we call a DID. Distractions, interruptions, and disturbance. Um, Now again, we just wanted to give a more detailed conversation to some previous topics mentioned, which were business, objective, and population. And as I mentioned, as we come to a close of our conversation, there will be some information provided at the end of this to allow you to give a, you know, dial a number that would allow you to have a more detailed conversation, guys. I'm Agent Shaun Lynch, and I look forward to speaking with you.